welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful September the 1st, 2020. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, this day seems to be like all other days. Law enforcement killing another black man on the streets in Los Angeles, California, riding down the street on your bike gets you killed by the sheriff's department. But I also want to thank the first responders, nurses, doctors, first responders for the admirable job that you do every day in America.
Wow, I did not know what happened again in Los Angeles, but I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you reach out and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I've been pausing and pausing and pausing. The world needs to pause more, but we'll never pause when our Veterans Crisis Line, Big C, they really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, everyone should think about our veterans. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number each of our shows, Charlton, because we lose some 22 veterans a day to suicide in this country. A very horrific number. As we look at the president out stumping, trying to get votes, he never addresses the issues with the veterans. All those issues should come from the top down, Charlton. Our administration should care more about the veterans than anybody else. They allowed him to be in office, Charlton. They allowed him to skip being drafted in Vietnam 5 times, 5 different deferments. So you know he wasn't interested in being a veteran, so why should he even care about a veteran? But our American citizens who've gotten their sovereignty from the great veterans of this country need to think about that veterans, suicide prevention hotline number and give it a call, give them a hand.
Yeah, we'll do our part, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 to get some help. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they are really waiting to help as many people as possible. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly, TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV just like McDonald's does it. Sports teams do it. Car dealerships are doing it. And a lot of people are doing it with real estate. Let real estate and TV work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. Looking to be in about 48 states before the end of the year. Really looking forward to that. It's amazing. Last night, before you even talk about what happened in L.A. and what's going up in Wisconsin, I heard Bakari Sellers and Don Lemon, and they told that story about a mice peeing on cotton in a church. And I said, were you on CNN last night, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we have a worldwide reach, and especially here in the United States on plagiarism. Everybody follows suit to Big C Sports.
Yeah, when Don Lemon cracked up when he heard Bakari Sellers talking about a maybe I said you and Bakari go to the same church where the mice are allowed to pee on the cotton, but it's all fair love and war. Sometimes you just got to laugh in this world, Big C. I want to make sure that people register to vote. Text the word VOTE, VOTE, to 26797. That's 26797. Tell them, Big C, the NFL and all the sports leagues are saying get out and register to vote. And your vote does count unless you don't vote. Big C, I don't know what you were talking about with what just happened in Los Angeles. And I know the POTUS went to Wisconsin instead trying to fan the flames. But there were signs on helicopters and airplanes flying by saying, we don't want you. Please leave. And that was in what used to be Republican state, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this was a photo op and a campaign opportunity. It wasn't about easing the tensions in Osh, Wisconsin, Charlton. It was about him getting out there, Charlton, going to a swing state. You see, the president only goes to swing states.
Yeah.
He never went to Portland, Oregon. He never went to Seattle, Washington. But he's in Osh, Wisconsin, Charlton, because it's a swing state and he's trailing.
Yeah, it's a trailing too. Now, it's a shame that he did not even address the gentleman's name that was shot nor met with the family. And I guess he equated being shot 7 times to having a bad golf swing shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is choking under pressure on a golf course. Where in the world do you get choking under pressure to being shot 7 times, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is insensitivity and lack of knowledge of the president, equating a black person being shot to somebody having a bad day on the golf course. Or panicking in a situation. He doesn't understand what goes on in society, nor does he care, Charlton, when you do type things like that. And also even making a statement that there are people loading up on planes wearing ninja outfits, flying across the country to enact anarchy in America. And, you'll find out soon who they are because it's under investigation. But the president runs off at the mouth like diarrhea. That's all he does. And that's the same thing that he's doing, just like diarrhea.
Well, I guess if you could imagine what that's like, I'm sure most Americans have experienced that at one point or another, especially when you eat some of the stuff that he talks about. I want to get into just a couple of things. I know we're going to cover sports. We're going to cover things that are real. I don't want to have fake arguments with you about who's a bigger, stronger, faster athlete. Never have enjoyed that. But I know we talked about a little bit yesterday, the Reconstruction era, the Civil Rights, the 15th Amendment. It barred voting rights discrimination on the basis of race. But today, President Trump said we don't have a race problem. Okay? It left the door open for states to determine specific qualifications for suffrage. In southern state legislators, they use such qualifications. Now remember, POTUS says we don't have a problem with race in this country. But they still use such qualifications, including literacy tests, poll taxes, and other discriminatory practices to disenfranchise majority African-American voters, Big C, and that's in the decades following Reconstruction, and POTUS says we do not have a race issue. I guess he never read the Kerner Commission, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, majority of white people in America feel that there's no race problem. How does race affect them? When you're the dominant party, Charlton, and you control all of society and politics, how can you feel racial vitriol towards yourself, Charlton? You're looking down at everybody. Everybody is trying to get to your level of success in society and equality, so you don't feel that racist vitriol coming after you when you're controlling everything.
Yeah, especially when he shows up to Wisconsin and he says there's no race issue. And minorities.
How many black people, Charlton, were present from Wisconsin when he showed up? You didn't see any, so there was no race issue. This was about a white appearance that he made in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think I saw one, Big C, and he was clapping.
He was part of the cabinet.
Yeah, I was going to say he was clapping, so he's probably clapped as loud as a mouse peeing on cotton that you guys talk about. He was hard to notice, but he was there clapping, Big C. And when you talked about the battleground states, I hope Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I know they understand it, but more than understanding it, make sure you show up and get your ground troops out there because it's the electoral college that you need. You're looking at those swing states, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, Big C, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and, of all places, Wisconsin, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, like I said, Charlton, these are political stumps. It's not about healing America or understanding the racial divide that goes on in these places. We've talked about how Wisconsin disproportionately has more African-American men locked up than any other state in the United States. He didn't address that issue, Charlton.
No, he didn't.
And, he's singing the praise of a sheriff who said back in 2016 that you should lock up all young black men, just build a warehouse and put them inside till they die, like President Trump did to the Hispanics and people coming across the southern border.
Yeah, Adolf Hitler did the same thing to our Jewish brethren, and the whole world turned its back. And there were people that argued that Hitler was a decent person too. Amazing. Sometimes history repeats itself. But I want to go no further than saying, please, America, text the word vote to 26797 and register to all your friends that Big C, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, everybody with a decent heart. You got to get out and vote. If you don't vote, then you really should shut up. Big C, college football, you ever have a doctor tell you, don't do this, don't do that, let things heal up, and then you can resume your normal practice? I know you've told me you've had some 17 surgeries over the years, playing sports and whatnot. But college football, it's amazing that POTUS would go to the conference where the parents threatened to beat up the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference. Donald Trump, he met with Big Ten Commissioner, I believe, Karen Warren today, allegedly. And there might be a decision in the Big Ten resuming football soon, even though the conference is denying that. Or by the end of the month, they're trying. So when the Big Ten canceled football, it was, I think, an 11-3 vote by school presidents not to play. So is POTUS going to try to threaten to beat up those presidents too, Big C, if they don't play? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's demanding that they play football. You just mentioned about the swing states.
Yeah.
That, he's very interested in persuading the vote for him.
Yep.
And then if he can get college football played in those swing states, Charlton, he feels that will bode well for him in the polls and even at the election booth.
Yeah.
But, he's not talking about the science. You know what appalls me about the president is that he doesn't address COVID-19 any longer. He says it's behind him.
Yeah.
It is not on his watch. It's a Democratic problem. And if he doesn't win, then the Democrats will have to take over the problem. If he wins, it's still behind him.
Yeah, Dr. Fauci came out and denounced that garbage. He said, though, you can't think that is down. They just told the hospitals, don't report to the CDC, report to POTUS. And again, for people that don't understand, the Electoral College determine who wins the presidency, the United States. You're going to see, and I hope the Democrats pay attention, because I'm stumping for the Democratic Party, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. You're looking at states like Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin. In most of those states, they happen to make up what's called the Big Ten Conference, as you said. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's what it's all about, Charlton. If you can get college football played in the Big Ten, he's not talking about the Pac-12. He hasn't mentioned the Pac-12 at all on the West Coast. And there's several states out there on the West Coast. But just like Seattle and just like Portland, he won't visit those states to talk about the unrest in those states, Charlton, because they're not part of the Big Ten and not those swing states.
No, he's not going anywhere near Washington or Oregon, but that's all fair and love and war. I do want to jump into the world of Major League Baseball. Again, when Chadwick Boseman passed away, that thing, Wakanda Forever. Well, they had an herb called Vibranium herb, Big C. And I really do think that some of the Dodgers, I used to have some Vibranium, Big C. I can't seem to find it lately. But the Dodgers, I think they found the Vibranium, Big C. Major League Baseball, we just finished the month of August. Think about this, the highest single month home runs total among National League Baseball teams. I'm telling you, the Dodgers, they found where the Vibranium is, Big C. The 2020 Dodgers, they hit 57 home runs in August, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Los Angeles became a launching pad. If you think about the Dodgers over the past couple of years, they've had some guys that have been in the home run race. Charlton, Cody Bellinger last year finished second in MLB in home runs. So the Dodgers have brought over Mookie Betts, who had been an EP in the American League when he was in Boston.
Yeah, he knows what the Vibranium is, Big C. In 2000, I guess it's the second thing you think about in the 2020 season with COVID-19, not everybody has been on the same normal ritual, Big C, the normal regimen. So to do it in a COVID-19 season, 57 in 1 month, that's amazing. The second place team that's done that throughout history, and when you think about it in a single month, the Cincinnati Reds, they hit only 56 back in September of 1999, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the long ball has always been a part of baseball, and that's what puts butts in the seat. and you like to see the guys who can jack it out of the park. But when you think about what the Dodgers did in getting to 57, breaking the previous record of 56 by the Reds, that was set 21 years ago, a marvelous feat.
Yeah, they really have. 2019, the Braves, them good old boys down south, they found the Vibranium, Big C. They hit 56 home runs. In 2003, the Braves organization also hit 55 home runs. And in May of 2000, it was the Cardinals. They hit 55, only 55, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a common theme, Charlton. When you're thinking about these guys who can get it out of the park, how baseball has changed over the decades, and the long ball brought the excitement back. You think about the juice era in baseball when McGwire and Sosa was in that heated battle, to crack 60 home runs in a single season. And then when we look at what Barry Bonds did, ultimately going 73 when he was with the Giants.
Yeah, it's amazing how, and Barry Bonds, we know he knew where the Vibranium was, Big Z, because they still won't put him in the record books. They were so angry that he did what all the other guys were doing, McGwire and Canseco and those guys, and they say they don't want to let him get in. It's all fair and love and war. Major League Baseball, as we talked about, Dodgers made home run history, clearing out on Sunday. Of all days to do it, Big C, a church day, the Dodgers clocked 3 home runs in the first 3 innings against the Texas Rangers in that beautiful ballpark they have down there in Texas with nobody in it. And they said the new National League record for home runs in a single month, and again, that 57 number, it will probably hold good until somebody breaks it in this September, Big C. In the NFL, Kansas City Chiefs, same head coach Andy Reid and general manager Brett Veach, he signed him to a 5-year contract extension. He should go thank Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs have in play, Charlton, they've locked up a lot of their star players on the roster, starting with Mahomes, Kelsey, the Jones, the defensive tackle, Charlton, Tyrann Mathieu. They put some contracts in the hands of players trying to build something positive there in Kansas City. And when players have security, they have a tendency to want to win. And when you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs have done in the last 2 years, Charlton, they're only one drive away from going back-to-back Super Bowls. And you think about what Andy Reid has done with Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback that he wanted, that everybody else bypassed. And he picked this guy, and everybody's like, why are you taking him? I guess the proof is in the pudding right now.
I remember when Patrick Mahomes played at Texas Tech, and you were telling me about this kid down at Texas Tech. Pay attention to him. And you were saying that when he was down in college. Now it's amazing that people overlooked him. I think you hit the home run on that one, Big C. Also in the NFL, we talk about this every show. Just like Donald Trump says there's no racism, he also says there's no sexism, and that those 25 sexual assault allegations against him, all the women lied. They all lied, Big C. They all lied. Even though he said you can grab them by the PU, blah, 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 blah. And he also said a lot of things. He could walk down the street, shoot somebody, and get away with it. I just realized that went over my head. He was talking to young white kids. People thought he was talking about himself. Isn't that what that white guy did up in Wisconsin, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Donald Trump has not denounced the Kadash shooter, Charlton. As a kid who drove 45 miles out of state with an illegal long gun and shoots people in the street. And he's defending the young man, saying, well, he was in fear of his life, that they would have probably killed him. He's the one walking around with the assault weapon.
Yeah.
And he said the young man was scared. No, he wasn't. Because you travel 45 miles to go hunting, Charlton. And that's what people do.
Yeah.
They travel a distance away from their home to go hunting. On this instance, he was hunting Americans.
Yeah.
Donald Trump won't even recognize that because he was a Trump backer who has attended Trump rallies, Charlton.
And he's Caucasian. And Donald Trump says, well, he was afraid. It doesn't make any sense. But the NFL...
He wasn't afraid to travel 45 miles with a gun.
That's very true, Big C. That's very well said. The NFL has taken over the investigation into the allegations within the Washington football team in the workplace that owner Daniel Snyder, that said he would never change the name Redskins. They want to confirm that in a statement saying that it's suggested to move it to Roger Goodell. Sexual harassment is something that we should not take lightly, and we don't definitely take it lightly at all. In fact, we're so vehemently against it that we denounce it all the time. But I'm still shocked. I do know a couple of Caucasian women friends, and they still defend Trump. They say the women must have been lying. So if women are so catty at times, not all of them, but if women are so catty that they won't even come to the defense of a former female woman who was crying about sexual assault. That's why guys like Daniel Snyder and Donald Trump say they can get away with it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, his latest allegation against the Redskins organization, the Washington organization, is that Daniel Snyder several years ago had ordered a video to be made of partially nude cheerleaders when they were on a photo shoot so that he could pass it around to several of his friends.
Yeah.
And so when you see women defending Donald Trump, Charlton, it's just like when Trump says there's no racism in America. These women haven't had those type of problems occur to them. They've lived in a protected environment. They have not been abused by somebody. So they don't know how to speak or stand up for women that this has happened to.
Yeah, it's a shame that when you deal with that issue, sometimes the men have made women think it's their fault. Maybe they shouldn't have wore lipstick. Maybe she shouldn't have wore the high heel shoes. Why did she wear a dress? Why was the dress so short? Why were your pants so tight? Why did you look him in the eye for more than 2 seconds? And I see women say, well, she must have wanted it. Why else would she go to the hotel room? Doesn't make any sense. We've heard the NFL, when you think about it, that Bill Belichick, who doesn't praise anybody, Big C, he's praised quarterback Cam Newton plenty of times over the past couple of weeks. Could it be kind of throwing salt on Tom Brady? I don't know. But this week, the Patriots head coach went as far to say, as Newton, this might make Donald Trump throw up, that Newton, who's an African-American, is the hardest worker around, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think of what Cam Newton has to prove, Charlton, is that he's been one of the greatest players in the NFL over the last decade, and he's retooling himself right now, Charlton. A new system, a new life on his career. And what he is playing for, Charlton, is that big-time contract. He's playing on a one-year contract. He goes to New England. He gets New England into the playoffs, Charlton. He gets paid next year in free agency. That's what has Cam Newton motivated. He's motivated because 31 other NFL teams passed up on him, saying that he was washed up and that he was a problem in the locker room. He has come to New England. He's had the same work ethic in New England as the ethic that he had when he was in Carolina. This is always the vitriol that black athletes always have to deal with. Everybody wants to say they're callous, they're lazy. They think that they're entitled. But they've always had to work harder and prove themselves more than their white counterparts.
I remember when I look at guys like Cam Newton, I think he's a little bit taller than Warren Moon. And I know he's taller than Brady.
About 6 inches taller than Warren Moon.
Well, he's a tall guy. He's taller than Brady. And he's taller than Randall Cunningham. But I think he runs better than all of those guys. Oftentimes people say a tall, lanky quarterback maybe shouldn't run. Have you seen a guy like Cam Newton with his size, that a great run option quarterback? He can pull it down and run it. He can also throw it down the field 50, 60 yards accurately. But to be as tall as he is, normally that's reserved for shorter players. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I have stood and talked with Cam Newton on a couple of occasions. He is a hulking man. He stands a pure 6'6", about 245, 250 pounds. He's in that LeBron James physique. So when you want to know what Cam Newton looks like, look at LeBron James and think about somebody being 2 inches shorter.
Yeah.
That's Cam Newton's physique. He is a pure athlete, Charlton, a dominant athlete. And when he does what he does, he does it because he has honed his body to be able to do that. There are plenty of quarterbacks in the NFL that have been in there that are 6'6".
Yeah.
But none of them have had the athleticism or the intelligence that Cam Newton has possessed.
I really think it's going to help New England because no matter what people say about Brady, they never had a quarterback who was a run-pass option with Brady. He just never had that in his DNA. And
you got to think about Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels took Tim Tebow as a pure rookie in Denver when he was the head coach and went into the playoffs and at least won one game, Charlton, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tim Tebow is no near the caliber of quarterback that Cam Newton is, even though Cam Newton was Tim Tebow's backup when they were at the University of Florida during their freshman year. But Cam Newton has excelled once he got the spotlight.
Yeah, I think this man, and having that time to have some time off and the surgery that he had to heal his body, I expect a lot of good things from New England. I know people look at Buffalo or maybe even Miami, but to me, New England is still the team to beat in the AFC East. Here's another player that actually played for the Patriots for a short time, Josh Gordon, 2018 Super Bowl ring sales at auction, $138,000. The ring was also sold at the same auction Michael Jordan's rookie card sold for $420,000. And Babe Ruth had a 1934 New York Yankees contract which went for $234,000. I hate to see when guys are selling rings that probably means that they're going through some issues. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Josh Gordon has money, Charlton. He's not broke, but he's looking at it as that he did not participate in the team winning the game, Charlton. I think the NFL had suspended him about the 12th or 14th game of that season, so he was not on the active roster when the Patriots won that Super Bowl. But he qualified because he had qualified under veteran status.
Yeah.
It shows you the value of a Super Bowl ring now, Charlton. This was the 2018 Super Bowl when they beat the Los Angeles Rams in Atlanta. That ring went for $138,000 for a player who wasn't on the roster and not a non-starter, Charlton.
Yeah. I hope that with everything going on with players, and sometimes they need some help, I hope that he gets whatever help he needs, no matter what it is. I hope everybody gets the help they need, Big C. Also, when you think about the NFL owners, Michael Bidwell, he calls the COVID-19 battle an awful experience. Donald Trump and the Big Ten should really hear this, because there's a lot of parents who just don't read. But even Bidwell, he tested positive for COVID-19 back in July. He ended up in the hospital on an ICU for 5 days. Bidwell said it was an awful experience, one that he's had major breathing problems and severe headaches and a temperature that kept spiking over 103. He said it was very scary. And even with that, Donald Trump goes to the swing states and wants to argue with commissioners of the Big Ten Football Conference that really have rebuked him because they're pro-science. And he's telling them, don't worry about these people that had issues. Don't worry about almost 200,000 people who've lost their lives. It'll just float away. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'd like for Mr. Bidwell become the spokesperson for the NFL when it comes to COVID-19 to let the rest of the owners know how heinous of a disease this is. And it's not about just having a cold, Charlton. It's about a life-threatening ordeal. And that the potential of NFL players ending up at IC units this year from playing football, Charlton, is very real.
Yeah, and the amazing thing, Big C, I might go out on a limb, but I might say that Bidwell is a Republican. He's old white guy, probably wants whatever tax breaks he can get, and maybe voted for Trump. I mean, the Republican state, you think about it. And I remember Trump was down in Arizona, as many other places, with rallies, and you have the owner of one of the NFL's 32 franchises that has COVID-19, and he's suffering from it. The NFL saying, so what? We're going to kick off anyway, Big C. And I think Donald Trump would just say he's fake news, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, but, you got to give it to Mr. Bidwell, Charlton. He came out and made it known that COVID-19 is real and life-threatening. He could have kept that quiet, as many other people have done, and as well as the NFL has done, Charlton, when they came back with 77 positive tests last week. They said, no, run it back and come back and say that they're false. We can't have that many tests with that many teams, 11 teams involved, coming out positive.
Do you recall? You ever recall something? Do you recall that Jerry Jones was missing in action for about 30 days? Maybe 35, 40 days. I don't know if he had COVID-19, but for a man that has an insatiable appetite to be noticed and to say, look at me, where there's the biggest stadium or one of the most expensive stadiums in the NFL. We know he has the most expensive stadium in the NFC until the LA Chargers or the LA Rams kick off. And he's a guy that really runs the state of Texas with his big oil money, has the big yacht, big personality. The only thing that really shuts up old men with money that want to say, notice me, is they get sick, Big C. But when someone gets sick, they don't tell everybody, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Jerry Jones wasn't going to tell anybody. He came out this week, Charlton, and he made a statement on a radio station. Didn't sound like the same, enthusiastic Jerry Jones. It sounded a little weak and lax in his delivery of his words, Charlton. But Jerry Jones was hiding for months, not just weeks, but months, Charlton, because of this pandemic. He's also stated that whenever he's around somebody, he makes sure they have a mask on, and he has a mask on now, Charlton. So I think that Jerry Jones may have had a bout with COVID-19.
It's just like players don't brag about catching an STD, even though they go to every strip club, to every city they go to and hang out with groupies, but they don't brag about getting an STD. And I'm pretty sure that Jerry Jones, he's older, he meets that profile, he's shaking hands with a lot of good old boys down in Texas, and he was just quiet, like a church mouse drinking cotton tea. How do you say a church mouse drinking tea? What's about the church mouse, Big C?
Well, squad is a church mouse pissing on cotton, Charlie.
We're going to take the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And when we come back, we're going to try to find some church mouses urinating on cotton. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps you can find us on with Big C Sports. Really appreciate it. I know Bakari Salas was on CNN talking about a church mouth inculcating on cotton or urinating for people. I want to see if Angela Bry will use that same statement, Big C, because I know the Big C Sports Show is taking off in a lot of places all over the universe. Is NFL, Big C. Philadelphia Eagles. You know, Pennsylvania's a swing state. You're going to see POTUS flying through there also. Owner Jeffrey Lurie, would you believe he slams the leadership over COVID-19 response? The leadership is his friend Donald Trump. They slammed him. Donald Trump's name was not used. But this is the owner. They don't have the boldness that Big C Sports has. And God knows that's true, and so do they. But he slams the ownership over COVID-19 response. Over nearly 200,000 people lost their lives, and POTUS still refuses to wear a mask. But he's been sick. They said he was having seizures when he was going to the hospital about 2 years ago. Maybe that's why he sniffed so much, Big C. But, you know, the owner, Lurie, took aim, and he said the rest of the country's leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic has really been horrific for this country, and too many people have lost their lives for it. And the president goes out and plays golf and doesn't really care, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the president today, while he was in Wisconsin, told everybody in the meeting to take off their masks. So he really doesn't care about people catching COVID-19, Charlton. He had his convention at the White House last week, and 1,500 people were there. You know, nobody's wearing a mask. So the president is discerning about the lives and the welfare of American citizens, Charlton. He thinks of himself as a monarchy. And he is not going to spend any more time on COVID-19. So as much as we want to think as the president cares about American citizens, even this plasma medication that they were talking about was told, the FDA and the CDC came out today and said it doesn't work. You know, it's not a proven antidote. And he's talking about getting a vaccine for COVID-19, and it'll be here before the election, Jonathan. He keeps lying to his base that he's going to do this and do that. There's no way that the world can come up with a vaccine, Charlton, that's been tested and certified prior to the election.
And if they're touting a vaccine that comes out of Russia, you know what Vladimir Putin has done to media people who disagree with him? The same thing Trump wants to do. You know, they disappear, Big C. I mean, if it comes out of Russia, I don't want anything to do with it. NFL owners, a man who's had his own problems, Big C, with the Oxycontin issues. But Jim Irsay explains why saying, and this is for you Trump supporters too, when people say that all lives matter, it misses the point. Of course all lives matter. Humanity matters. But the phrase Black Lives Matter is equal, Big C. It's about the unequal treatment of black Americans. And if people don't know that, just Google the Kerner Commission. The United States did a study on it. The only way you fix it is if you acknowledge that it exists. It's like saying, if you say that only Black Lives Matter and people say they have an issue with that, if you say that breast cancer awareness, that breast cancer matters, it doesn't mean that you don't care about people trying to deal with leukemia or skin cancer or colon cancer, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, a very poignant statement. You know, what the Black Lives Matter is a statement about the abuse of the culture of a people.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that, you know, during World War II, Jewish people were saying Jewish lives matter.
Amen.
But the Germans didn't give a damn about that.
Amen to that.
And no one knocked them on that, Charlton. So
that's very well said.
The statement Black Lives Matter in the United States, it's about the oppression that has been put on Black lives in America, the atrocities that have been put on Black lives in America, the lack of equality and opportunity that Black lives have had to deal with in America. So when people want to just jump up and say, white lives matter, all lives matter, if they don't think that Black lives matter or Black lives get an equal opportunity, why don't they try replacing all the political positions with Black lives? All of the civil service positions with Black lives, and see how it feels to be on the outside looking in when you lack equality.
Or let's take the whole Congress and the Senate and make them all black. Okay? Take the whole Congress and the whole Senate, make them all black. But I want to touch on something that I've never looked at it that way before. The Holocaust, we know Hitler came to power in 1933, and we know the Holocaust happened between 1941 and 1945, and there's numbers that say up to 6 million Jewish citizens were burned in ovens. They were murdered by Adolf Hitler's ugly regime. And it only happened because the world turned its back. Just like POTUS going to Milwaukee saying, we don't have a race problem, even though per capita you guys lock up more black men than anyone in the country, Big C. There's no race problem.
You say the world. White people turned their back on the Jewish population during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
It wasn't black people. Black people didn't turn their back on them. They weren't running countries other than, and even in Africa, it had been taken over by white people, Charlton.
Yeah.
So don't sit there and say the world turned their back. White people turned their backs on the Jews during the Holocaust.
Well, that may be very well said, and it's a shame that when we said the Holocaust, don't talk about the Holocaust. What about?
Well said. Look at yourself and say what countries went to war during World War II to fight the Germans. And what I look at in all those countries, Charlton, they had white leaders. All of those countries that went to war during World War II to fight the Nazi regime, and even the Japanese, they all had white leaders. When you think about the segregation that went on in America, they still, at that time, did not allow black troops to fight alongside white troops.
Yeah.
Blacks had the best fighter battalion in World War II, Charlton, the Red Wings out of Tuskegee Institute.
Yeah.
So it was not blacks making the decision about allowing the Holocaust, Charlton, to occur.
Yeah, and there's so many people that push back that slavery ever happened or that the Middle Passage ever happened when there were more black Africans that were murdered through the Middle Passage and through slavery than in the Holocaust. But people say, oh, that's in the past.
Think about World War II, Charlton. The problem that America had is that you had to go kill people that looked like
them, yeah.
And you also had a lot of Germans that were living in the United States.
Yeah.
The United States has never had a problem going to war, Charlton, against countries where the people did not look like them.
Yeah.
But they had a problem during World War II of going to war with people who look like them, Charlton. Think about that. I mean, as we look at the world divide as how it is, United States, the greatest country in the world. But whenever they've gone to war, they've had a problem going to war against people that look like them. You look at the war in the Middle East, Charlton. Yeah. You look at the Vietnam War. You look at the Korean War, Charlton. These were people that did not look like the United States masters. So they had no problem going to war with them.
Yeah, and the only time a nuclear weapons were used is the Hiroshima Big C when millions of people lost their lives with the atomic bomb. It's amazing. They even rebuilt Germany with the Marshall Plan in Western Europe. But it's all fair and love and war. I'm glad you brought up the thing about the Holocaust, because when people talk about protecting the Jewish citizens, it doesn't mean that other citizens don't matter. But they were the ones who dealt with the Holocaust, just like Black Lives Matter. Very well said, Big C. NFL football, just days after the NFL reversed its COVID-19 list, the league saw a negative turn over the weekend, with the list jumping back up to 5 cases by Monday morning. After I think they said 77 cases were wrong, and then they tried to say, oh no, there was a false positive, and then Monday they get more positive cases. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you can only hide it for so long, Charlton, but the cases keep coming out. So with the report that you just talked about, that 77, 82 cases that the NFL has had of coronavirus in the last 10 days we know of.
Yeah.
That the NFL has reported 82 cases in the last 7 to 10 days of coronavirus. How in the hell do you expect to keep players safe, Charlton, when baseball keeps hitting them?
Yeah, I think what you got to do, Big C, is just say it's fake news, because we have an administration that says it's fake. But I do really appreciate Jeffrey Lurie saying that Donald Trump is a liar. And any thought that even Herman Cain, his best friend, or one of his better friends, a black man, died, and he hasn't mentioned his name since, not even at his Republican National Convention, but he'll go to Wisconsin and pat on the back a white boy that murdered 2 people. He won't mention Herman Cain's name, his supposedly friend who lost his life to COVID-19, but he'll pat on the back a white kid who shot 3 people and killed 2. And he said, oh, he was just afraid. And now he's asking those same dumb people for his vote. NCAA college football Auburn Tigers head coach Gus Malzahn, he told reporters on Sunday, I think it was Sunday night, that his team will be without 16 to 18 players on Tuesday due to COVID-19 that POTUS says doesn't exist. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this is becoming the pandemic of the college world. When you think about the Auburn football team, Charlton, having that many players test positive in 1 week for COVID-19. So if they tested positive, think about the players that they've come in contact with. I'm going to take the rest of the team they came in contact with, Charlton, within 6 feet of them. No social distancing during practice, in the locker room, in the eating hall, Charlton, that they go to. But we think about these breakouts, Charlton, in these colleges that said that they're still going to play college football. They're in the SEC. Think about the Big 12. University of Baylor just came out, Charlton, since they started school, early August, that they've had 645 positive cases on campus. 645 at the University of Baylor down in Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
And it came out from the White House, Charlton, that President Trump is telling presidents of universities, don't send the students home with these pandemic breakouts. Keep them on campus. Let everybody catch it.
That is so crazy, and Donald Trump is crazy. And people, when you see a crazy person, not being insensitive to people who have mental illness, but someone is just crazy, like who he says take household cleaning products and sniff that in. He's always sniffing. When you listen to him, he's always sniffing, Big C. I mean, something's up with the president, Big C. I know he just gets down that way. NCAA, Illinois State athletes. I'm glad that players are starting to read. I'm not saying this just because of Big C Sports. We're the only sports show that doesn't ogle over how big someone's jockstrap is or sniffing somebody's behind because they can jump and dunk a basketball. Illinois State athletes, they strike after athletic director said that all Redbirds' lives matter in a Zoom call. And Lions made the comment on a department-wide preseason Zoom call last Wednesday night, and it set off a wave of criticism to the university because some people have such a hard time saying Black Lives Matter, but they don't have a hard time saying Jewish Lives Matter, or that the Holocaust was wrong, or they don't have a hard time saying Me Too, the Me Too movement matters, don't assault women. But sometimes people take issue with saying Black Lives Matter. And so the players, they didn't like the insensitivity that the athletic director came up with. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, this is a staple of white America, that when you're insensitive to other cultures of people and you feel that they're beneath you or less than you, you're not going to say that they matter. I mean, when you're throwing out the trash, you don't say that the trash matters. When you keep it in the house and let it smell it up a little longer, you get rid of it. And that's what many people think about Black lives, that they're disposable and they don't matter unless they're playing sports.
Yeah, and we've seen that since the Middle Passage. Come here and make me some money. Come make me some money, and we'll love you. If you don't make us money, then you're a terrorist. You're an uprising. You're anti-American. You're anti-military. If you don't want to make us money, just get out there and play ball. Ironically, college football, there's 10 University of Central Florida players, including 2 projected defensive starters and backup quarterback Darryl Mack, he's a junior. They've opted out of the 2020 season because they read. University of Central Florida head coach Josh Heupel revealed the players on Tuesday, just hours after the ACC released a media poll showing University of Central Florida as the favorite to win the league title. You know, these players are not interested in winning the league title. They're interested in staying healthy for their lives. Big C, your thoughts?
Dalton, we showed numbers at Central Florida University last week where they had, I believe, like 438 cases of coronavirus. You know that has gone up. Florida is a hotbed. Even though the Governor DeSantis is not reporting the numbers to the CDC any longer, they're going directly to the White House, and he says that the numbers have taken a drastic dip, from 2 weeks ago where they were having over 10,000 cases a day. Now they're under 2,000 cases a day. That seems, kind of odd, Charlton, that you can have that much of an infection rate going for an entire month, then all of a sudden it just falls off the cliff 80%.
Yeah, and he was even I saw him on a TV news program, and he was crying. This good old boy, he was crying fake tears because he said they're trying to open up, I guess, rest homes now so people can go in and say their last goodbyes. Just because you go to a rest home doesn't mean you're going to pass away. A lot of people come out of them. But he had these fake crocodile tears about people just want to go in and say their last goodbyes. But it's his fault because he refused to trust science as people got sick on his watch. So those people having funerals, that's DeSanto's fault. He and Donald Trump, because they told all of those people, most of them on medication, probably because their doctors told them this medication will prolong your life, take it based on the prescription. They told all of those people that are dying that you don't have to listen to science, so don't take your medication either. And now this knucklehead is going to act like he's sad that some people may pass away based on catching COVID-19. Big C, your fault?
Well, Charlton, when you lie, the lie eventually comes back home to roost, and that's what it's done. And here's DeSantis putting even more Floridians, Charlton, in harm's way, saying that the numbers have dipped in the past 10 days, some 80%, because they're not testing as much and they're not reporting to the health department of the state. Matter of fact, he fired the director of the health department
he fired
because they wanted to release the numbers to the public. So he fired them and put one of those porch monkeys in place down there, Charlton.
Yeah.
That will do what he says. But you're jeopardizing the health and welfare of an entire state of people. And Florida, we know, has a state full of elderly people.
I know it.
But here's the governor who's in the pocket of the president, shining his shoes with his tongue and everything.
Yep.
And letting lives perish, because they have political agendas.
Yeah. When was the last time you heard of POTUS going down to Mar-a-Lago, his own golf course, and golfing on government dollars? Have you heard that any time in the last couple of months, Big C? Your thoughts?
He hasn't been to Mar-a-Lago, Charlton, in over 3 months. Yet it's his home, Charlton, and he was always down there every other weekend at least. Now he goes to Virginia. He doesn't go to Florida because he knows how the outbreak is in Florida. The president won't even go down and put himself in peril in Florida, but he's telling everybody that the pandemic is over in Florida.
The man won't even go to his own house. His own house. He won't go to his own house, but he'll tell you that you can go. Major League Baseball, the Oakland Athletics, they've been shut down since Sunday after a member of the Oakland A's organization tested positive for COVID-19 just over the weekend, Big C. And following the postponement on Sundays, the A's and Astros games at Minute Maid Park, that's down in Texas. Major League Baseball, you think about it, postponed the A's 3-game series against the Seattle Mariners at T-Mobile Park as well, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, and this is what I keep talking about with the NFL, Charlton. When baseball is getting 1-2 players test positive with COVID-19, and we know there's more social distancing in baseball than there ever could be in a football game, Charlton.
Yep.
And yet this week we saw where 5 players tested positive, and they came from 5 different teams in the NFL, Charlton. So we know right now at least 5 teams in the NFL have COVID-19 on their roster, where a week ago there were 11 teams that had 77 cases of COVID-19. And so with baseball closing down, Rod Manfred taking the mantle, said we're not going to play the game. We're going to quarantine these teams, Charlton, until everybody tests, negative. We're going to put them on pause. The NFL is not doing that as players test positive, nor is college football.
No, and Alabama had 1,200 people on campus test positive, and I know Jerry Jones must have had some type of contract with COVID-19 or somebody in his organization. There's no way that man shuts up for almost 2 months, and he doesn't sound like he has the strength the way he did before he went on the hiatus. It's all fair and love and war. Big C Sports, we want to be the new sexy. We want to be clever. We want to be engaging. We really want to be bold. We want to be thrilling. We even want to be funny. We want to be provocative. If you want real sports talk, if you're doing something and it feels good and you want some more, just Google it. I mean, it's so important to everybody tell the truth. People don't have to like what you say. NBA basketball. I told you about the Vibranium with the Black Panther. They wanted to drink that purple herb, Big C. The NBA. You think about Murray and Mitchell. It's amazing. They both have purple in the uniforms, I believe, or at least a bluish purple. And Ultimate Heat Check Series goes to Game 7. And Game 7, no matter what sport you're playing, is always a great thing to be a part of. Think about this. In the first round series, it's unprecedented what they're doing. There's still a Game 7 to play between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz tonight. This is must-watch NBA basketball. Only one has a player scored 40 points or more on 4 occasions in the same first-round series. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about how electrifying this series has been between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz, I mean, we've seen 2 of the brightest stars, young stars in the NBA evolving here in the bubble. You talk about only one star has scored more than 40 points on consecutive games, 4 consecutive games in the playoffs. That was Bernard King back in 1986. against he was playing with the New York Knicks against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
And you think about, here's Murray, the greatest player evidently that had ever come out of Canada up north, and now he's starring with the Denver Nuggets. He has had two 50-point games, Charlton, in this playoff round against the Utah Jazz, as well as Donovan Mitchell has had two 50-point playoff games against the Denver Nuggets. We've never seen this in the NBA. And you think about what he did in the last game when Murray came out, Charlton. He had 8 points going into the fourth quarter and lit the place on fire. I mean, he said he was motivated by the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. He had both of their murals on his shoes. He was very emotional after the game. But this just shows the depth of humanity within the NBA and how they're hurting also, Charlton, about the injustice going on in American society.
Yeah, but Donald Trump says that racism is not a problem. I guess there was no need for Lyndon Baines Johnson to sign the Voting Rights and the Civil Rights Act because POTUS said there's no problem. And I'm sure he never heard his friends that he admires, Governor Wallace, Bull Connor, Strom Thurmond. They also said race was not a problem. They just said keep people separated. It's not a problem. All life came from Africa. NBA. You want to know what the Vibranium is, Big C? Jimmy Butler found it. The best player on the floor, opposing reigning NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Miami Heat took Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. It set up a top seed, the Milwaukee Bucks. Butler scored a playoff career high. He had 40 points, Big C. I tell you, he knows what the Vibranium is in a 115-104 victory, including 13 of the Heat's 16 points. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Jimmy Butler has traveled a long road to get to this point, Charlton. Every stop in his career, everyone has said he was a problem in Minnesota, in Chicago, in Philadelphia. But now that Jimmy Butler's gone down to Miami, Charlton, and playing with Eric Spoelstra, who knows how to deal with superstars and different personalities in the NBA, he's gotten a new lease on his career, and he's now exploiting his talent to its fullest and going out and dominating Milwaukee. Giannis not only is the reigning MVP, but current Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. Jimmy Butler said, no, we are a good team down in Miami. And like I said, in the bubble, it's a whole new era in the NBA as far as the talent that we have seen on the court.
Yeah, it really is. We've seen, I mean, even myself, I was skeptical about the bubble because you didn't know, but the NBA, they have done a good job. And so I appreciate what I'm seeing. But I still, because I know so much about the Tuskegee Institute and they hid that they gave over 600, I think it was 400 black men syphilis, and they didn't let them know it was a government experiment. So I don't always trust what I hear, but I'm glad that no one is coming out saying that they have tested positive other than a couple of players. But the NBA, when you think about how fantastic it is, after the Thunder fell behind 2-0 in the early series, there's something about Chris Paul. Not only does he make those great State Farm commercials, Big C, he's been clutch. He's found the Vibranium. I know he knows where it is. And you think about it, it's on full display in the first round of the NBA playoffs. What Paul did was clutch. I mean, he's one of the most clutch players in the league, and even in the regular season. But now he's carried this team into the playoffs. And we have a Game 7 because of it. He made back-to-back three-pointers to tie Game 6 and sank a pair of free throws to push the Thunder to a 104-100 victory. The Thunder has a 7. They're looking at 7 spot, Big C. This is Game 7 of NBA basketball, which is what you love. But it's also a spit into the face of the Houston Rockets that let him go, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about Chris Paul and what he has to prove, this is the team that traded him, that gave up on him, saying that he was a cancer in that organization last year and the reason why they could not get over the hump and get further than what they had in the last 2 years in the playoffs. And now Chris Paul has a chance to come back for redemption and eliminate the team that said that he was the problem. And Chris Paul has been this way all season long in the NBA, Charlton, prior to the stoppage. He was the guy who was stirring the drink in OK City, and we know they drink it straight down there. But Chris Paul has been a motivator for this young team. He's brought it together, and now he's pushed this series to a Game 7. And if they come out victorious against the Houston Rockets, they really got to look at that organization all over and retooling itself.
Why would you not have James Harden? James Harden really can't win for losing. I don't think Westbrook's ever gotten out of the first round. But when you think about this,
he's been to the finals.
He's been to the finals, but lately they've struggled when they've had him when Durant left. But when I think about this, why would you not give Harden the ball to let him be the guy that brings it up the court? I know when they do, he gets blamed for not passing until there's 5 seconds left. But if you have one guy in the history of the universe that you want to have the ball because you got to win a game, wouldn't you make it everything has to go through Harden? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the problem with the Houston Rockets and D'Antonio in the past 3 years is that he's tried to play that team with 2-point guards.
Yeah.
You can only play with one 2-point guard in the NBA. And Russell Westbrook plays harder than any player in the NBA.
He's amazing.
But that's also to his detriment, Charlton, because he does not know how to defer to somebody else. When you look at him and Durant, it was the same story. He wanted to take the shot, probably cost them a chance at a title in OKC.
Yeah.
And now that same scenario is playing out in Houston, where he's the guy who wants to take the shot instead of the best shooter on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's going to win this series. I thought Houston would get him in that small ball. I never really believed in it. But when I saw them play, and again, 2020 has been a different kind of year. Nothing's what it used to be. Whatever it's going to be is going to be. And just like COVID saying that COVID-19 does not exist, but all over the world, I think there's 178 nations that are trying to form a combined front, Big C. That means work together to figure out how to find a treatment or a vaccine for COVID-19. But Donald Trump doesn't want to participate in it because he doesn't like the World Health Organization because he can't be the guy getting the credit, Big C. Your thoughts?
And that's all it's about, him getting praised, Charlton, for finding a vaccine, even though it may come from elsewhere in the world. And you got to think about Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
He's applauding Donald Trump for killing Americans.
He sure is. He's helping them. He doesn't have to pay the snipers to shoot American troops, Big C. He says just let them all die and tell them that the vaccine's not real. And if you don't believe that, just Google it. This guy's dangerous in the White House. And for you white Americans that are going to vote for him, you put your whole families in peril. And look in your mirror. Is he more important than your children, really? I mean, the answer to some of you is yeah, but everybody has their own choice. NBA, Big C, has the bubble situation in the NBA really showcased the next level of superstars? Really for the next decade in the league. I know people talk about Luka Doncic and Murray and Mitchell, but this bubble experiment is really showing us a lot of good things are happening in the world of the NBA, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it really has showcased who's going to be the next level of stars in the NBA to carry them through the next decade. When you think about what Donovan Mitchell has done, being in the bubble, Charlton, averaging just under 39 points a game. You talked about Jamal Murray. He's right at 34 points a game. And both of these players, never in the history before in a playoff series, have two players had 50-point outbursts, and yet Mitchell and Murray have done that, Charlton. Kawhi Leonard had a career-high 33 points a game during the series. James Harden has taken a dip from 37 in the regular season, Charlton, to 32 in the tournament.
Yeah.
But you talk about Luka Doncic. This guy will probably be the next guy to average a triple-double over a season in the NBA. And he's at 31 points a game in the bubble, Charlton. So when you think about the NBA being in good hands, the reigning MVP is averaging 30 points a game in the tournament also.
Yeah, and I don't like to give out scores until the games are over, but I know the Boston Celtics and the defending NBA champions, Canada, my goodness, those Raptors, they found out that they don't fight fair in Boston. They're down 2-0, 102-99. The Celtics, they jumped on them in game 2 also. They lead the series 2-0. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what's the difference between the Celtics and this year and last year, Charlton? No Kyrie Irving to be a disruption on that organization. They brought in Kemba Walker, a more stabilizing point guard, Charlton, who's not as selfish, and he's more of a team player. Those young players now, Charlton, with Hayward and out and Kyrie Irving gone, when you think about Brown, Tatum, and those guys, Charlton, have elevated their game.
Yeah.
And they're playing at all-star caliber, and they're up 2-0 on the defending champion, Charlton.
Yeah.
Looking for a path to the Eastern Conference Championship.
They really are. I mean, I love NBA basketball. It really is fantastic. No matter what's going on in the world, we hope that people can stay safe. And no matter the garbage that POTUS tried to pull up in Wisconsin today, I'm so proud of some of the Wisconsin people saying, we don't want you. Even the governor said, we don't want you. POTUS went anyway. He went where he's told you're not wanted, but he won't go to his house in Mar-a-Lago, Big Z. I'm just telling you, people got to get out and vote. No matter what you think of the Big C Sports Show, almost every sports program, even news programs, talking about peanut and cotton in a quiet church or however you good old boys say it. I just hope that people really get out and vote. And when you vote for decency. vote for Joe Biden and vote for Kamala Harris. And get this trash out of the White House. He really is trash. He won't even call a murderer a murderer. He'll say, well, he was afraid. Think about that when your women are getting your butts whipped, and he won't denounce anybody as long as they're white. He won't denounce it. More white women are battered by their white husbands and boyfriends than any other group in this country. And POTUS says, hey, it's okay. They were just they felt afraid. It's a shame. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. And he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward in the sports universe to all the black mothers out there, Charlton. We have to be more solid and considerate of how we treat them and the children that they have raised in America, Charlton. And think about how strong they've been over the decades and centuries in this country. And as black men, sing a little more praise to them. It would eliminate a lot of the problems that we have as a culture in the United States. And I also want to thank our first responders, nurses, doctors, first responders out there, Charlton. You're the admirable job that you do in trying to preserve life in America.
You got to do the best you can. Get out and vote and show peace, love, peace, and soul every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child to ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.